here?
Okay.
I want to listen to them.
Welcome,
At least tape them anyway.
everyone, to a meeting that has been in process. This is the Wenham Board of Selectmen regularly scheduled meeting for Tuesday, December 4th. We had posted and just completed an executive session that began at 5 o'clock, and we are now back in open session at 5:32, beginning as we typically do with a public input for items that are not on the agenda. I don't see anyone who wishes to speak at this point, so we'll move on to announcement. And Jack, you have the announcements this week.
Okay, I hope this says December 4th. This tonight curbside leaf pickup update. This says will be updated Tuesday prior to the meeting. So I presume I have an update in here?
Okay. Indeed.
The DPW will continue their first round of loose leaf collection tomorrow along Walnut Road and Lodge Road to 1A. How far are they behind with all this rain and everything else? They must be behind, right?
They are, certainly. I think the fact that it warmed up a little bit there, we got a lot of rain, got rid of the snow and the ice and everything else. So
Yeah.
it was
At least they're not frozen.
right.
Or snowed.
Which was really slowing them down. But even they, all last week they were heavy and wet. But I think now, thankfully, right before the cold weather set in again, I think they're in a decent position. So still behind, but catching up.
Yeah. The DPW will make every effort to pass through each street twice. That's an effort. But due to the uncertainty of the weather this time of the year, it is not always possible, and particularly this year. Please use caution when moving loose leaves to the curb for pickup and refrain from blowing leaves into the road, which could be hazardous to motorists. Check the town website for the scheduled route and daily status updates, and contact the DPW with questions. Of course, you have a particular question you're going to answer, Catherine, on this, right, from one of the constituents?
Actually, Peter is following up on a constituent who had a question about the rotation.
Indeed, I'll be talking to Bill tomorrow morning about where that rotation came from and what the precedent is, so we can...
As long as they start on my street, I don't give a shit. I don't care. I don't blow them out there anyway. I have somebody else pick them up. All right, second announcement. Historic anniversary of historic mock town meeting tomorrow night at 6:30. Tomorrow night, join the Town of Wenham 375th Anniversary Committee and the First Church for a historic mock town meeting. Celebrate the end of Wenham's 375th anniversary year through this interactive history of town meeting in Wenham from 1643 to 2018. The interactive program will take place between 6:30 and 7:30 in the sanctuary, presuming that's the church, right? Mm-hmm. And then complimentary refreshments and a cash bar at the church, no less, will be served from 7:30 to 9 p.m. in the Holland Hall, where town meeting artifacts, photos, and history will be displayed. That's great.
For those who don't realize, the first town meetings took place at the church, First Church. That was the meeting house in the old days.
Yeah. Since the selectmen never got their wish, they moved it over to someplace else, right? Is that
Yeah, that's how we ended up with town hall, I guess.
Toys for Tots. That's 1 and 4 and police departments will once again be hosting a Toys for Tots drive on Saturday, December 8th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Bring your new unwrapped toys and help stuff a cruiser or fire truck. Where is that going to be? Meet your public safety team members, Santa and Sparky the fire dog. Call 468-5508. It doesn't say where, though.
It's right at the fire station.
Right at the fire station, okay. We'd have to bring it someplace. Or email fireprevention@wenhammass.gov with any questions.
So when they say unwrapped toys, they mean not wrapped for Christmas?
Correct.
Yeah.
So you can see what it is first.
Wrapping and it...
Yep.
Okay.
I've got toys my kids rejected years ago. I thought,
They're probably still great.
Yeah, that's right.
They're coming back, the old one.
Toy guns, whatever. Board of Health public hearing regarding proposed change in local tobacco regulations. A lot of news on this recently, including today's Globe. The Wenham Board of Health will conduct a public hearing per Mass General Laws, Chapter 111, Section 31, if you know what that means. I don't. At 7 p.m. on Thursday, December 13th, in the second floor conference room at Town Hall, which is right here, to gather public input on potential amendments to regulations regarding the sale of tobacco products to minors, including increasing the minimum legal age to 21. Current regulations and proposed amendments can be found on the Board of Health page of the town website or by visiting their office during regular town meetings. So if the Board of Health decides to change it, will it have to come before us?
It's Board of Health statutory authority to make that determination.
Right now, is it 18?
It's 18, yep.
Yeah.
And it's going, per the legislation that was approved at the state level, it's going to 19 and 19, 20 and 20 and 21 and 21, absent the Board of Health taking action, which is what they're seeking to do, is to just jump it right to 21 next year.
Wreaths Across America. That's Saturday, December 15th at noon. Join the Veterans Committee at the Main Street Cemetery on Saturday, December 15th, 12 p.m. for the Wreaths Across America ceremony, where over 200 wreaths will be placed on veterans' graves throughout the cemetery. Simultaneous with participants at the Arlington National Cemetery and other communities across the nation. Call Town Hall Administrator's Office, 468-5520, extension 2, know it well, or email us in roebuck@wenhammass.gov with any questions. And so we've been mentioning this for quite some time, and I think it's going to be
It's a big deal. At this
deal.
point, there's approximately 1,000 wreaths going to be showing up at my warehouse sometime next week.
They're not all
But
for one.
between Hamilton and Wenham.
Between Hamilton and Wenham. No, not all for Wenham.
That's great. They've done a great job with that.
Yep.
John will have a sale of those left over after.
Any leftovers, that's right. I'll be out in the corner by the
I'm
church.
done with the announcements.
Okay, so we will move on to our reports, and the town administrator's report, please, Peter.
Sure. Some good news on the grant front. We found out yesterday that we were awarded just over $7,500 in grant funding from Maya. They have an annual risk management grant program that we have taken advantage of over the past several years. And this year's award goes to a variety of different equipment. If you remember the last couple of years, we did the HR audit through this. We did the tree inventory, a needs assessment. This is more geared towards employee safety and training. So protective gear for DPW employees, backup cameras and sensors for DPW vehicles, infrared camera for our facilities, and then some trench safety training that we're actually hosting at the library later this month for DPW employees, and that comes along with the new OSHA standards that we have to.
They're going to dig trenches in the library?
No,
Oh.
just the training.
Oh, that's training, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think Jan would have approved that one. The other good news on the grant front is last month we were notified by the state, by EOPS, that the police department was awarded just over $15,000 in federal grant funds. It's the Burn Justice Assistance Grant, the JAG grant, for various safety equipment and technology. That's a competitive grant program, and certainly good news for the police department, just based on the fact that federal grant funds don't often make its way down to communities like ours. So a good job for the police department for the grant application that they put in there.
I mean, the water evaporates before it gets down here?
Have they identified what they think they might use that for?
They do, and there will be some probably further detail in the weeks
Just
ahead.
wanted to have a feeling they had it
They did,
already earmarked.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Shifting gears a little bit, we had a pretty well-attended meeting last Thursday night here in Town Hall about the proposed Main Street traffic improvements.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Maybe
Thank you,
close to 50
Peter.
people.
Yeah.
Just thought it would be good to mention that again. We talked high level about what the proposed project is looking to cover in terms of roadway improvements, sidewalk improvements, and the like, and heard from a good number of residents who were here. We're soliciting input from residents over the next week or so, and I think the important takeaway is that we're in the very conceptual stages. We've been working with MassDOT for the past 2 years, but really are just engaging our own engineering team now at this point to start on 25% design. And we've had the initial analysis work done by the state transportation planning officials, but again, are looking to hear back from residents about what they think about those conceptual designs. And we have a fair amount of information up on the website, including the presentation, the slide deck, the recording of the presentation, and the backup materials that were provided by the state as they've worked with us over the past several months. So,
I'd like to suggest that the Board of Selectmen consider a citizens' interest group regarding this, of those parties, because we heard from a number of parties at the meeting that have some fairly specific concerns about where they access, where they come from. And I think, it worked well when we did this for the 97 light some years ago. We had a citizens committee. I think it would be beneficial to get some input from the community who's most affected by it, particularly. So.
Everyone's affected by it, my God almighty. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Once you live in
absolutely.
East Wenham and you never come by this, everyone.
Yeah.
Did you get any constructive comments or critical comments or suggestions that resonated well with you?
I think there were a fair amount of thoughtful comments and questions that were made. I've got a folder going since the Chronicle did a write-up online, at least. That was posted yesterday afternoon. I've gotten some emails since then. I'm just keeping a folder of the kind of running commentary, and it runs the full gamut. Generally, there has been, the feedback that I've gotten so far has been supportive of the need to do something, and what exactly that looks like has varied depending on the personal opinion.
Oh, yeah, I forgot, you weren't there, Jack, but, there's going to be consideration for property taking, there's going to be consideration for road and sidewalk widenings. This is a very historic area, and we want to make sure that they're not going to make it look like New York City. I've seen what...
Be a long way to go if that happens.
Yeah.
I've seen what has happened in
Gotta move
Beverly,
out too,
and
right,
some of their
right.
curb bump outs are not very constructive. They remove a lot of parking, they make it very difficult for traffic to actually get around corners. So I've thought about it a lot more since that meeting last week.
And the design team that is going to be working with the town on this is the same team that worked on the 97 intersection project.
Oh, that's right, yeah, the engineer, one of the engineers that we were listening to.
Yep, he was the project lead for
I
that.
forget his name, but,
So certainly sensitive to, what's unique and different about Wenham. And again, they're going to be, the engineers are going to be under contract with the town, and regardless of who's funding the design contract as we go through the various stages, MassDOT has assured us that we're not going to lose control over the design of.
won't lose his seat at the table.
And what I think I heard at that meeting was people wanting, neighborhoods that are directly
That's it,
affected,
that's a better way
wanting
to
to have initial input. So to your point, my suggestion to get that input would be to structure it more as a focus group or several focus groups for different neighborhoods, the Maples, Friend Court we heard from,
Yeah.
Monument Street folks, and then people in general. Maybe as the engineering work is beginning, we are hearing from groups. And then that gives them input on the design before it's actually finalized. And we know, because there was a few people from Friend Court that had some specific concerns.
Yep.
That'd be
As
useful
did the
to-
Maples.
Right. The Maples concerns, I think, were actually addressed in the design, but maybe not all of them. So that would have been, to get that kind of feedback, I think the most useful thing and the most efficient way to do that would be to identify a few groups, and maybe one of them is just a general group. And I also think of the questions that I've gotten, people are upset that it's going to take this long, and I get it, we all are. We try to say,
And you're spending $3.5 million.
well, and it's, it's
Half
a
an
state process. And then when I say that and it takes a long time, they say, well, you should have started sooner. So, okay, well, maybe. But I think there's a little bit of, sort of misinformation, like we've been sitting around waiting. And, certainly we've been on this for a year and a half, 2 years. So anyway,
And we
that's,
did in the presentation, I included a couple of slides that specifically talked about each step along the way, so why we end up with a, 4 to 5 year project to get to completion, start to finish.
Right.
All of the steps that we're required to do along the way. And that's something that frankly would be the case whether it was a state road or not, unless we were funding it entirely in-house. So if it was not a state road and we didn't need any state funding, then yeah, it could be a little more accelerated. But other than that, that's the process that's out there and one that we'll have to follow. And I do think, if you look at the first year, there's a real opportunity to continue to get feedback from residents, because we obviously haven't even engaged the engineering team yet. And then once we do that, they have a lot of survey work that has been done, because the report that the state issued didn't include any survey work. So just that alone will get us into next summer before we're even starting on the actual design.
Yeah, and what I thought was very, very smart on their part is they're going to lay out in paint on the pavement what the road is going to look like in a finished, almost in a finished product.
Well, and that's, I think,
That resurfacing and painting, line painting.
yeah, I think that's one of the things that's going to be key between now and next summer on our end, is coordinating with our engineers and the state in terms of what exactly that restriping
Right.
will look like at each of the intersections.
So before they start excavating or taking anything or whatever, changing things dramatically, to have that actual practice session, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge there is that the existing road width might not necessarily support some of the proposed final design changes, just based on not having, the space to add that turning lane at a particular location and so forth. So
Yeah.
we'll have to, we're not gonna obviously be changing curb to curb what the road's looking like for
Right.
those short-term measures. So
We'll give you sort of a mock-up.
Yep, but we will have site constraints that, and we'll certainly know a lot better what's going to fit within the existing right-of-way and what we may have to consider in terms of widening in order to make those changes to the intersection long-term actually work.
The comment that why didn't we start this several years ago, I think it's only been in the last 2 years that traffic, for reasons I don't understand, has got dramatically worse. 4 or 5 years ago, a little bit more traffic, but not anything like what I've experienced or seen in the last 18 months to 2 years. It's hard to get across the street here from.
That's what a lot of people are saying. They can't walk across the street. It's just so bad. Their kids are,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
bikes.
But I don't think this is, that wasn't the case. I don't recall it being the case. And I've been coming to this room here for a long time, on evenings and days, and that for some reason or other, the population of the town has not increased that much, but.
Well, coming through it one way or
It's
another.
through traffic.
Huh?
Yeah,
It's through traffic.
right.
Yeah, Arbor Street, my God almighty, taking a right, anyway, good luck.
So I'm sure.
More to come.
More to come.
In the months
More to
ahead, for
come.
sure.
A lot
But
more to
I
come.
just wanted to put it out there again, lots of information on the town website. Want to hear back from residents, but certainly won't be the last time that we'll be looking for input.
No, and I think you made an important point. There are pictures on the website that look as if this is the final design, this is what we're getting. When in reality, it's not only not a final design, but not even an engineered design. So it gives a concept, and even though it seems like even though it's funded, we hope completely by the state, they seem to be cooperative and saying they want to help us and they want to listen to what our concerns are about what it looks like. So we'll have constraints, but they're not deaf to our concerns.
There'll be
So
many more updates in the
many more.
next 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mentioned
From
that I
this-
was meeting with Bill Tyak tomorrow morning about another issue. We'll be talking about how to fund, the initial stages of the design work, just with what we have currently
Right.
in highway road capital
challenging.
and our Chapter 90 funds.
Okay.
So
Anything else?
Good.
Questions?
that's it.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda, which John has the motion for, the main motion for, but before John begins, I would like to make a motion to remove something from the consent agenda. So I move that we remove the October 23rd executive session number 3 from the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Yep.
Okay, now, take it away.
All
I
right.
think your motion is
So,
correct.
I move to approve all remaining items, what you left there, Catherine, in the consent agenda as presented, including the release of sets 1 and 2 of the October 23rd, 2018 executive session meetings. And that consists of October 23rd, 2018, number 1, and October 23rd, 2018, number 2. Do I have a second?
I'll second that. I think we had, I thought we had, executive session 1, right. So I've reviewed the minutes as a secretary, and I already had all the executive sessions minutes as recorded by Catherine were fine with me. I only had one suggested revision on the open session, right, Catherine?
I believe so.
Yeah, just one minor thing, so
And it was made.
it was made, so that I'm comfortable with the minutes
Okay.
as presented in this book. And Catherine did an outstanding job as usual.
All right.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I
Thank
think that's unanimous on the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
People should understand that there's nothing else in the consent agenda other than the minutes.
Right, this
In
week.
case anybody's wondering what we're doing here. you know.
It's all minutes. They can see that on the agenda. So we are now,
Maybe not.
And the term
new
consent
business.
agenda is relatively newly being used
It
by
is.
this board.
I
Right.
think it's saving it. Oh, I hope it's saving us a little time. New business. The first item of new business is used car dealer license renewals.
Oh, is that why we have all this
Why we
company
have
with us
some
tonight?
Guests here this evening. We have 3 used car dealers in town. Our book has been organized with them separately, so we'll talk about each one of them separately. We have some general information, and then Captain DiNapoli from the police department, who, thank you for coming, who's been involved in some of the additional work, is here to give us a little review of each, and I believe we have representatives from all of the dealerships.
Applications, yeah.
So the first one that we have before us is Burnett's Garage at 60 60 Maple Street, on Burnett. And I will just begin by saying that it appears to me that the required items, including checks and permits, seem to be in our packets. I will ask, since in each one of these cases, we've done something a little different this year in having sort of inspections of each one.
Oh, yes.
At the beginning of this
Before,
year.
yeah.
And Captain DiNapoli was very involved in those. I'll ask him to come up and maybe just, for now, speak to Burnett's.
Okay.
Because we'll take these separately.
Do them one at a time, yeah.
Yeah.
Good. I like that.
So when I took over this area, I reached out to Mass State Police. That was the first thing that I did, and because I got some information relative to who it fell under, and it was their Vehicle Services Division, and Trooper Chuck Luis assisted me with that. And what I did was all 3 dealers, we gave them a courtesy heads up. Beginning of February, I went to each one of them and said, hey, just so you know, we're going to be coming by to do a spot inspection. So we didn't even have to do that. It was kind of, good faith to say, hey, we're going to be coming by. So we did do that, and then a week or so later, Trooper Luis and I then conducted those formal inspections at all 3 of them, specific to Burnett's. Like all 3 of them, there were some deficiencies that were identified by way of that inspection. Trooper Luis, in his memo, outlined them, dealt with dealer plate issues, mostly bookkeeping type issues. There were some issues with the lemon law stickers, the requirements that the stickers have to be affixed in a certain area on the vehicles that are being sold. Same thing with the used car warranty stickers. And then proof of sales, which kind of falls under the bookkeeping things. In all 3 areas, and I'll touch on the other issues, what Triple Luis did was forwarded this report through Mass DOT, and all three were given a hearing date where they had to go talk about the deficiencies that were identified, show how they were going to rectify those deficiencies, which they did. And then at later follow-up spot inspections by myself and again by Trooper Luis, he was able to confirm that the deficiencies identified in the original spot inspection were in fact rectified and put them in good standing to move forward with their licensing.
Okay.
Captain, I have a question regarding the dealership plates.
Okay.
What initiates a dealer plate to a dealer? Is it a request for one plate, 12 plates?
And that's what came up in the inspection. So what Triple Luis did was based on the amount of sales and the volume from each dealer, he based the need for the dealer plate based on the request from each place.
So a request goes in?
Correct,
From
because
the
they have to
dealer.
pay a certain fee, and they'll be able to speak to that probably better than I.
Yeah.
For each plate that is issued, there's
Yeah.
a certain annual fee you have to pay.
Okay.
And so, but you also need to justify the need for however many plates you're requesting. So, you know, a place that might sell, you know, one used car every 2 months to have 3 or 4 dealer plates wouldn't add up or make sense for the need.
Okay.
So,
And those are issued like all other plates from the Commonwealth of Mass?
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? Okay. So from your point of view, Burnett's has done everything that it needs to do.
Correct.
And I think we have a representative, yeah. If you'd just like to come up and say anything, now's your time.
I mean, we actually cut from 3 deal plates to 2 plates.
If you might introduce yourself, sir?
My name's David Burnett.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yep, Burnett's Garage.
Thank you, David.
So yeah, we cut from 3 deal plates to 2 deal plates, and we just a while back we had 4. We cut down to 3. So 2 is where we should be, where the registry felt we should be.
Okay. Save you a little money, if nothing else.
Yeah. Yep.
How did you feel about the inspections, or the fact of inspections?
It was fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a bit of a new procedure for us.
Sure.
But I think, having read the reports, it was quite enlightening for me to know more about what it is that we're,
Yeah. Yep.
you know, what you're applying for and what we're approving.
Sure.
So we're not quite as ignorant as we probably were in the past.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Anything else? Anything else the board has? Anyone? Okay, then, don't leave, Captain, but you're welcome to sit down. Please. I'm going to read the motion having to do with Burnett's Garage. Having met all state and local licensing requirements and paid all fees, I move the Board of Selectmen renew the Class 2 used car dealer license held by Burnett's Garage located at 60 Maple Street through December 31st, 2019.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that's unanimous. You're all set. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, David.
The next one that we have is Fallon's used car dealer slash gas station. And once again, in my review of permits and et cetera, it seems as if everything is here, but again, the same process was followed with
Correct. Same timeline was the same. The
Right.
inspections were done on the same day, and the follow-up hearings were also on the same day. The identified issues were a little different. Bookkeeping was same thing. Lemon law stickers, same thing. The hours, no business hours, and the signage was a little off according to what the specifications require. They have to have hours specific to the sale of the vehicles. It can't just be, if it's a gas station, it can't be general hours that work as a cover-all. They have to designate specific sales times, and they have to designate signage out front relative to the fact that they sell it, which they, in turn, after the fact, made those changes according to what was requested.
Okay. Mr. Fallon, want to just come say hi? Give us your impression of how these inspections went from your point of view? Thank you
John
for
Fallon,
coming.
233 Main Street.
Hi.
Hey, thanks for
Hi.
being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, right.
I guess you could be home. Never mind. So, to John's point, this was a new process for us. You feel like it was handled fairly and,
You know, not really. I mean, I thought it was quite an inconvenience. All three of us had to take time out of our day to go to Boston for a hearing that was, in my opinion, trivial. You know, business hours that weren't posted, a couple of, paperwork issues, but I found it to be more of a witch hunt than anything else.
also, let me just double back to the captain so I understand. These are all statutory issues, minor perhaps, but they were all statutory issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I could see how it's
But I mean,
working.
dragging us to Boston and losing a whole business day to go to Quincy,
Yeah.
I thought it was an inconvenience. I mean,
Yep,
Right.
yep, I can see that.
Yeah.
I'm just a taxpayer trying
Right.
to pay my taxes and make a living, and to be dragged through Boston, the traffic, it was a huge inconvenience.
Yeah.
I think it
wish-
could have been handled much differently, but like I said, it wasn't.
Well, I wish there was a closer court, I guess is the only thing, a closer place to have a hearing. Because if,
Quincy's the only location.
yeah.
It is the only place.
Because if you
but
got a
So what if
traffic
you're from-
ticket.
the point of the matter is, we
Ipswich.
should have never even been dragged in there in the first place, my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, years ago, none of this happened. It's just, I find it a huge inconvenience. I mean, now we're going to get fingerprinted this year, something new. Are the selectmen required to be fingerprinted? Oh, that's my question.
I've been fingerprinted.
For your job to be selectman?
No,
Not to be
because of my
select-
reputation.
And what about the town administrator? Has he been fingerprinted?
Statutory.
Yeah, so that goes back to the bylaw that was approved by town meeting a couple of years ago and went into effect for the background check. And it wasn't specific to this.
Yeah.
And we've had a conversation around it.
Yeah, we spoke about it. But before, years ago, they started with a quarry check. Now it's fingerprints. What's next, DNA? I mean, come on. We're just three small businessmen trying to make a living. You guys are putting us through the ringer every year. I mean, we get fingerprinted, and the selectmen and the town administrator who are running the town don't? I find that to be a huge double standard.
Let me ask a question for clarity. Captain,
No problem.
is this going to be a process that will happen each year to the extent that Mr. Fallon is describing? Meaning
As far as the inspection part of it?
the inspection
well-
and the follow-up
So-
trip down to Quincy?
Well, if there were no infractions, there would be no
Periods.
trip.
Yeah, Quincy was only specific because that's what the.
Because
trooper
there was some
identified. Yeah, he identified those deficiencies that had to be addressed, and then they had to be issued a memorandum of agreement to fix those issues, which they did.
Yeah.
No, I'll do a cursory follow-up at each
Yeah.
establishment annually, and hopefully, unless something changes, they now know what those issues were.
Yeah.
They were all very cooperative, very respectful. I understand, we talked as well about the inconvenience of it. I get it. We all get it. But I don't see any of the things they changed being unchanged to make it so it's an issue again. They were all pretty much permanent changes that were made. So I don't anticipate it.
So the same type and requirement of inspection would happen next year and the year after as it was this year. So if you've learned from this year, I guess there's an upshot, John, but I can see your concern. To go to Quincy from here, that's not a
Yeah,
pleasant
I mean,
trip.
it was an all-day affair.
Yep.
Totally get it.
Lost the whole day, so.
But I can also attest, nothing to do with this itself, but I spent over a half an hour, close to an hour today, doing youth safety training for me, so that the troop can be certified for Boy Scouts.
Yep.
I mean, some of it I found very, very almost insulting, but I wasn't pleased.
Well, it is too bad you had to go to Quincy and take a whole day off. I'd be irritated if I had to do that as well. It's too bad it couldn't have been administratively a lot easier, like someone coming out to you, or
Right.
coming to Wenham Town Hall, or going to Beverly.
Yeah.
That would have been a lot easier.
Yeah,
instead
since there were three of you, yeah.
So there was no choice but to go to Quincy, is that right?
No.
Yeah, that's
No.
the only location that has these hearings.
Well, that's too bad.
So if you're from Haverhill or you're from Worcester,
It doesn't matter where you're
Still go to
from, you're
Quincy.
going to Boston.
As far as I know.
wow.
You keep saying going to Boston, but you went to Quincy.
Yeah, so it was even worse than going, you had to go through Boston
I
to
know.
go to Quincy.
I used to go to Quincy a
Okay,
lot. It's no pleasant
We
trip.
understand.
Okay.
But thank
Well,
you for
thank
your
you for sharing that,
cooperation,
John,
and let's
and,
hope we don't have to.
So I just,
Anything
back
else?
to my point, so the selectmen, my understanding, do not have to be fingerprinted, nor the town administrator.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay,
And
all
that's a
right.
town
I just
bylaw
want to go on the
voted.
record as saying that Fallon, John P. Fallon, states that that is a huge double standard, to have us 3 small business guys required to do fingerprints and all these other small businesses. Don't you find that to be a huge double standard? You guys are running the town. We're trying to run our businesses, and you guys are making us get fingerprinted and charging us $50 on top of it to have it done.
So I hear you. It is a bylaw that was approved by town meeting. I truthfully
Well, maybe they
do
should have
not know
included the
why
selectmen
it doesn't
and the
include
town
selectmen.
administrator.
I'm perfectly happy to be fingerprinted if the town wishes.
It
for
wasn't
me
an
to.
issue. That wasn't the issue.
I don't think it's just small businesses.
No, so there are, and I'd have to go back to the
As
exact
I
bylaw.
recall, the bylaw had a
But
list of.
and it certainly doesn't pertain just to the used car dealer license
No,
holders.
it doesn't, but, so, do you get where I'm coming from, though?
Yeah, I do.
I
Yeah,
hear you.
I mean, we're small business guys. You guys are running the town.
Yeah,
We
I
got your
could.
point.
They have my
Yeah.
fingerprints.
No further
Got it.
questions, Your Honor.
Got it.
I
Thank
rest my case.
We got your point.
We got the point. So I will make a motion. Having met all state and local licensing requirements and paid all fees, I move the Board of Selectmen renew the Class II used car dealer license held by Fallon's Auto Service Incorporated, located at 233 Main Street through December 31st, 2019.
Second.
Any further discussion?
No.
Not all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That would be unanimous.
Thank you for being here, John.
Thank you.
No, it isn't, I'm sure. Anyway.
But it's nice of you to say. The third last, I guess, used car dealer that we have in
but not
town is
least.
Freeman's Garage at 34 Arbor Street. Once again, I'll defer to Captain Napoli
Yep.
for the
So,
inspection report.
Following up on the same 2 inspections already mentioned, similar inspections were done. A few different things came up relative to Mr. Freeman. His biggest issue that he had to deal with was the office space. You have to have designated office space outside the residence. It can't be inside so he had to move that around. He had to change some signage. He had to obviously adhere to the guidelines relative to how many vehicles can be on the front of the property and things of that nature. And then what had come up was the bus that was on his property for quite some time, that he wanted it out, I think, just as much as we did. It was sold, and he had the bill of sales, I have a copy of that, and he was trying every which way to get the person who bought it to get it out of there. And finally, I looked up the date, I think it was October 5th is when I reached out to Peter to say formally it's gone.
Phew.
You know, because I can, as a neighbor, that's something you wouldn't want to look at. I totally get that.
Right, right.
So all the other changes were made. He really worked hard to clean up the area, to make the office ready, and to get everything he had to do. It was a lot. I saw what he did from the beginning to the end, and it was a lot of work. It really was. So, but we got to where we needed to be.
Okay. Comments, questions from the board?
You're going to ask Mr. Freeman?
Yes.
Mr. Freeman?
And Mr. Freeman, if you want to come up and just, for the same reason, ask any questions you have of us,
Well, the process?
or the process.
Paul Mendoza wants to speak after that,
Yeah,
too.
I'm sure. And
Sound
then,
that way.
yeah, that's why I thought I'd get the board's comments first, and then we'll
Right.
hear from Mr. Freeman, and then we'll hear from anybody else. Hi.
evening.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And I guess I'm going to just start by saying thank you for your cooperation and all the work that you've done this year.
Yeah, certainly.
So it's really been,
Yeah.
the neighbors, the town appreciates your cooperation with it.
Okay, it's good.
So you're feeling okay with the way things are going now? Relieved to have that red bus out of your yard?
Yes, very much.
I bet you were pretty ready to push it out
I
of your
couldn't
yard
believe
at
that
that point.
the guy that bought it never came back. Never heard from him again.
At all?
No.
Yeah.
We did requirement,
Yeah.
sent the registered mail to the address that I had on the
Yeah.
bill of sale. No response. And here we
Changed his
are.
mind.
Here we are at this day and still haven't heard anything.
Really interesting.
Just disappeared.
Just disappeared. Huh.
So there were certain legalities that I
Time
had
you
to
think
do.
you've seen it all, there's always
Yeah.
one more around the corner.
There were certain legalities I had to do before,
Huh?
I could do anything with it, because
sure.
it really belonged to somebody else after I sold it, but
And
Get it
I personally, professionally would like to say, I've been on the board for almost 12 years now, and I know you folks have had some challenges in the past, so it's nice to hear that things have straightened out for everybody.
Sure. I made a very good effort at it, I would say.
That's great, commendable.
Get it done. Yep.
That's great. So is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this? Please come up to the podium. Introduce yourself.
Paul Mendoza, 38 Arbor Street. It's not clear to me where the office is going to be. There are two people who live in 34 Arbor Street who are not related to Mr. Freeman. He lives in 36 Arbor Street. The census says he lives in 34 Arbor Street. So there's confusion as to who owns what, where, when, why, and how. Additionally, I'm concerned about our understanding that he is to sell a certain size vehicle. And those were sedans. There's an RV that's been there for 15 months that doesn't appear to be registered. I don't know who owns it, and it's within 5 feet of the neighbor's fence, and anything of that size, according to the zoning board, should be 35 feet, no less than 35 feet from the back or the side, not to be seen from the street. It's in the driveway. So when you drive by, you see an RV looking at you. So I don't understand who owns it, why it's there. Occasionally the doors are open. The people who live in the other house in 34 go into it. What is it? We dealt with the camper trailer. That was a concern for a long time. He doesn't sell camper trailers, he sells vehicles. Jack and I talked a long time ago, and he said, hey, an RV is a motor vehicle. Well, I think we changed the rule for Mr. Freeman and said that he doesn't sell that size vehicle. Additionally, he had 3 ramp trucks, and they all disappeared. Now he has a ramp truck, and he was driving it around with dealer plates. It now appears to be registered. There's a plate on it. It's not a repair plate, but there's a number plate on the truck, and it's parked between the 2 houses. What is the purpose of the ramp truck? I don't know these things, and I'd like to know. RV, where's it going? Ramp truck, what's it for? He doesn't repair cars. That's part of the agreement. So where are we going with this? I appreciate all the work that's been done, and I'm thankful for it, but there are still issues.
I guess the one question I would have is we talked about the fact the location of the office, but I would be interested to know where the office is now.
The garage area is where, right? That's where it ended up, right?
That's what we talked about.
I'm remembering correctly.
There's a separate door.
Yes,
And a sign
yeah.
that says sales office.
And the trooper observed it and
Right.
authorized it and said he was comfortable with the
Okay.
location of it.
Right, okay. So there is an office, and it's in an appropriate place.
And then aren't ramp trucks a reasonable piece of equipment to have to bring in or remove vehicles from lots so that they don't have to be driven on the road if they're not roadworthy for some reason or another, or not
Yeah.
registered or something?
You would think.
So,
Do you own that vehicle, Mr. Freeman? The ramp truck, do you own that vehicle? Yeah, which
There's my signage on the side.
explains why it doesn't have a dealer plate or a repair plate, I guess.
And the limitation on the license is to sell Class D and Class M licenses, not to own.
Which is, I assume, the case of the camper as well. That's a vehicle that you own for your personal use?
No, I don't know.
What we can do, if it's okay, is we can sit down and I'll itemize his concerns.
Okay.
I'll go line by line and I'll cross-reference it with the guidelines and the rules that are in place. And if there are any that don't match up, then we'll have to sit back at the table and fix those as well.
Yes.
But I
Great.
will certainly sit down and we'll just, make a good list, come in and see me, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
And I'll report back.
I think it'd be helpful to know, is the RV for sale?
Perhaps I could
Okay.
Answer a couple more questions.
Sure, please.
So I remember last year, I was not gonna agree to buy and sell RVs anymore, but that RV has been there. Belongs to Mike at 34 Arbor Street, and he has a title in his name. And I looked up the zoning, and the zoning says that someone in Wenham could have one parked in the rear of the property, one. So
So Mike is the person that's renting
Mike-
34 Arbor
Mike
Street
Cushman.
from you.
Yeah, it's titled in
It's his
his name, and
vehicle.
he's
Okay.
the owner.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, anything beyond that is a zoning issue.
Right.
You can
As I said,
probably
We
resolve
we
that.
can certainly
Okay.
Yeah.
just loop our building inspector, Brian Leith, into the conversation about
the building,
the setback issue.
the building inspector did come by, and he
Yeah.
asked about those, and he also talked to Mike,
Okay.
you know, about the RV, and he said it was his, which it is, you know, so it's parked there.
Understood. Okay,
Thank you.
Any other questions? Or?
other questions?
The people been lived in the house,
Say about 3 years.
they're not in the census. As a water commissioner,
Are renters required to answer the sentence? I think we just have to look
They
into
may
that
not
a
be
little bit
registered
more.
voters.
Yeah, we'll have to look.
Yeah, they're not registered voters, so.
But the
But the
fact of whether
census-
they're in the census or not isn't necessarily germane to the used
The
car
license,
dealer
no,
license.
no, that's true.
it's germane to the operation of the town.
But not to this agenda item, I guess is what we're saying. If it's an issue and it belongs somewhere, I guess, But-
May I add a comment?
sure. But
We're
at the
asking
podium, please.
We're asking Mr. Freeman to abide by the conditions of operating and living in this town. And it seems like we have to beg, plead, and push to get that done. Be a good citizen, run your business properly, be aware of what's required of you as a business owner. Mr. Fallon talks about poor little businessmen trying to make a living. Well, do the right thing, and you won't have a problem. Look at what you're doing, make yourself aware of the bylaws that apply to you, and live by them.
We hear you, and I think with the captain's help, we've already agreed that we'll have a...
Maybe an issue, but it's not a license issue.
Not a license issue, but it may be an issue, and I think it's something best handled online. If you don't, after having conversations with him or the building inspector or anyone else, something is not resolved, please come back to us.
License issue, the office was in the home that is rented to someone else for 3 years. So
But he fixed,
I'm asking, pardon?
but that has been fixed.
Just do the right thing, and we've been doing, how long have we been doing this? How many times have we had to come before you? on
So
this?
we understand that there have been some issues in the past, and perhaps some of them are because Mr. Freeman didn't understand fully, or maybe he did and wasn't being checked on, but we've sort of let's turn over a new leaf and move forward. With the help of the captain and the state trooper, whether Mr. Freeman was aware of them or not, everything has been identified. Those things that you're talking about, with the exception, I think, of the camper, have been rectified. And if there are new problems, we should hear about them. If there's still a problem, that needs to, it sounds more like a zoning thing. But I think at this point, yes, everyone should know, but I can't say that I know every bylaw. And I think we've done what we can to make sure that all of our
I appreciate
business
everything
people
you've
are
done.
aware of any bylaws that they may not be following. So, I don't know.
Thank you.
So, we hear you. Thank you.
But the captain's going to follow up on these comments and do what you said you were going to do a
Yeah.
few minutes ago, right?
And
Meet with Mr. Mendoza and then itemize what the issues are and see if they
Absolutely.
can
We'll go line
either
by
already
line.
resolved or if there's further action maybe from the building inspector or somebody else.
Absolutely.
loop back, of course, with Peter, and that'll get back to us.
You got it.
Okay. So, thank you. So I think we have a motion for the Freeman's Garage. So that no one is alarmed, this motion is a little longer, and it's only a little longer because last year's license was kind of a hybrid of two different sets of agreements relative to what cars could be where. So to be clear, there's nothing different in what I'm going to read, but it is exactly what exists now, and has actually existed since May 15th. So for clarity, we're putting it all on the record. So having met all state and local licensing requirements and paid all fees, I move the Board of Selectmen renew the Class 2 used car dealer license held by Freeman's Garage located at 34 and 36 Arbor Street through December 31, 2019, with the following restrictions. Hours of operation are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Operable Class D and Class M vehicles only. 4-car garage and 2-car shed on the property. Not more than 20 cars to be parked in the rear of the property. 2 of the 20 cars will be permitted to be displayed in the front of the property. As a sole proprietor, the town will be notified of any new employees or contractors, and the property is to remain in compliance with all other relevant local and state bylaws. I think that reflects exactly what would be on the license. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any
Yeah, I do have.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a contradictory thing here.
Okay,
It says 4-car garage, no, not more than 20 cars to be parked in the rear. 2 of those 20 cars to park in the rear can be in the front.
right.
That's seems like an oxymoron here, so that 2 of the cars will be permitted to be displayed.
Right.
All right.
On the front of the property. The
Right.
rest have to be behind the
There's a total
scene.
of 20 cars.
I got it,
Up to 2 in the front.
It's a 20, it could be worded different, fine.
Does that make sense?
After I read it 3 times.
Okay. Do you understand, Mr. Freeman? Okay.
So you got 20 cars in the back, but 2 of those cars in the back can be in the front.
Right. Right. Further discussion?
None.
Not? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Again, thank you very much.
Gentlemen.
Good luck to
All of
all of you. Thank you, Captain, again, for your work on this and for being here. Thank you for your comments, and the captain will be sure to follow up with you, Paul. And we will move on to our next item of new business. How are we doing? We have not too much time, but we have a status update on the regional dispatch and review of proposed new IMA for joint provision of public safety communications dispatch and operation services. And that's your item, John,
Oh,
which is scheduled for 20 minutes, but we have 7.
Want to defer this to the next meeting?
So the only issue there is that we have to provide the town's feedback. Let me just check when the deadline for that is. I think we had said. Just give me a minute, sorry.
I feel like it was the
14th.
14th,
Yeah,
yeah.
so we could include it on the December 11th agenda, that being a pretty packed agenda already, but we could certainly push it back.
We could it's important, and we may be able to give it more time. So I will make a recommendation that we, I never know what the right word is, postpone discussion of
Sounds
this
good.
particular item, item C under new business, until our next meeting, which is scheduled to be next
Second.
Tuesday. Is that right?
Yep. next
December
Tuesday.
11th.
Yep, December 11th.
Okay, that takes care of the
Second.
business. A motion to adjourn.
so moved?
Well, I don't think we have to vote to take something.
Oh, we don't? Okay.
Take something off,
Okay.
to just move it.
You started to
Deal.
make a motion.
No, I was going to say that I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second, third, fourth.
All in favor?
We're out of
So
here.
we're adjourned to move to another meeting, joint.
Now, will we have to open the meeting again over there?
Yes, we will.